Because if the status of authority and infallibility or magisterial status was what was necessary to make Francis or whoever a potential heretic, nobody could be a heretic but the Pope. Iffy Man, what's up? Iffy Man, what's up? Gotta unmute.
Hey man, how you doing? Sorry. So I've been following the conversation for a while. I don't know if you want to stay on the messianic topics, but I wanted to ask something about Catholicism and Orthodoxy.
Okay. No, I don't. We don't have to talk about messianic prophecies. What's up?
Yeah. So two things. It's two questions, but I think that they're brief enough that you would be able to answer them. The first one is, so an argument that's obviously made by a lot of Roman Catholics is appealing to certain acts, to have a certain interpretation of what is said in certain acts of certain ecumenical councils about the Pope, particularly the 6th and the 7th council, relating to like Agatho's letter or stuff like that. So my first question is like, what is your take on, like, what's like the Orthodox take on that? And then the second question is Craig, do you buy Craig Trevilia's argument that Augustine just didn't believe the filioque and stuff like that? I don't know what your take is on that, so I just wanted to ask.
I do not agree with that argument, and I've argued with him about it.
Okay, so on the
so if you read the book Papalism by Denny, he has a great explanation of how this actually disproves papalism, because number one, the 6th Ecumenical Council is condemning a pope. So clearly the 6th Ecumenical Council doesn't teach the indefectibility of the Roman See because Honorius defected. Secondly, if you look at the way the council treated Agatho's letter, they examined the letter to see if it was consistent with previous teaching, just like Chalcedon examined the letter to see if it was of Leo, to see if it was consistent with Saint Cyril. So Cyril is the pinnacle of orthodoxy at Chalcedon, not Leo. And likewise, the previous teaching of the church at the 6th Ecumenical Council is the pinnacle of orthodoxy, not the de facto letter of Agatho. So they spent, I think, Denny says a week, something like that, examining to see if Agatho's teaching was orthodox. Furthermore, the easy way to refute this is to point to Lateran 649, because if the attitude of this council was papal, then they would have not even investigated the teaching of Agatho, nor would they have even needed to have the 6th Ecumenical Council, which was an imperial council. All they would have had to do was to go to the teaching of 649 Lateran, which was a Roman Catholic synod held under Pope Martin I, attended by St. Maximus the Confessor, by the way, and it had already condemned monothelitism. So if Lateran 649 was a papal-approved council already condemning monothelitism, all they would have had to do at the 6th Ecumenical Council was say, hey, Pope Martin has already spoken, case closed. What do they always say? Rome has spoken, case is closed. Wait a minute. Yeah. Lateran 649 already spoke, case closed. Yet, this doesn't solve the issue. They have an entirely different ecumenical council in 686, called by the emperor, and condemn a pope. So the fact that Agatho says that Rome is unsullied and has always taught orthodoxy, we don't have that big of a deal about that, because Rome was pretty much orthodox throughout this period, except for Honorius.
Yeah, so I have a follow-up question. Just thank you for that summary. I think I heard Sarah from Hamilton make the same point about Lateran 649, that's actually a really big point. I think there's something.
And by the way, Lateran 649 is not counted among Roman Catholic ecumenical councils, even though according to their line of argumentation, it should be.
That's a really good point. That's something I've not heard brought up by most Orthodox or Catholics on these issues. So I'm definitely gonna have to read Denny's book on that. Question is, what was it?
But hold on. Before we move on to your next question, though, I mean, would you concede that if the ecumenical council is condemning Honorius for merely writing a letter advocating monothelitism, I mean, how does that square with the Vatican I doctrine of the papacy? No one judges the first see. No council is above the Pope.
Yeah. So for context, just before I say the next thing, I am a Protestant, just thinking through both sides on these issues.
Gotcha.
I actually talked to you about baptism a long time ago on the
I remember Iffy Man. Yeah, I remember.
Yeah. But yeah, so I think that is something that, as a point, I don't think I've ever. I think you probably have made this point on your streams at some point. I just maybe just missed it, because this is one of those points that I haven't really thought of. Like, yeah, like they're condemning him not because of, well, he went up in front of the whole church and said blah 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 blah, but he wrote a letter and they were like, no, the letter's not orthodox.
Yeah, but what I'm saying is that the letter was enough to get him condemned. So
yeah,
so that shows that. In terms of like how trad cats argue this stuff, Roman Catholics argue it, it doesn't require the Pope making something dogma for him to be a heretic or heterodox. Do you understand why that is?
Yeah,
because if the status of authority and infallibility or magisterial status was what was necessary to make Francis or whoever a potential heretic, nobody could be a heretic but the Pope, because nobody can do that but the Pope.
Yeah.
Was Martin Luther binding anybody to his justification doctrine? Does he have the power to do that in the Roman Catholic Church? No, and yet he's a heretic. Why? Because authority has nothing to do with whether you're a heretic or not.